Hello, please watch this short demonstration that will highlight some of the new features of BinaryMark Batch Image Resizer. For a start, all actions can now be toggled like this, which is useful in cases when you don't want the program to apply all the actions. To most actions, image orientation setting has been added that determines whether or not a particular action will be performed depending on the image orientation. For example, here any orientation is selected, and so the resize action will be performed regardless of image orientation. However, if I change that to portrait, because this image has a landscape orientation and not the portrait orientation, this action will not be performed. Notice how image orientation setting includes all the possible combinations of image orientations. That way you can have full control. Another practical example is image rotation, where image orientation setting is particularly useful. For example, what if you wanted all your images to have a particular orientation, say portrait, regardless of their original orientation? Prior to the image orientation setting, it was simply not possible to achieve this. However, now, thanks to the image orientation setting, in the rotate action, you can now do this by selectively rotating your images by 90 degrees only if they have a specified image orientation. A unique best fit resizing action has been added to the image resizer. It makes sure that any image will fit inside a rectangle of a particular fixed size, preserving the aspect ratio. Let's take this image for example. It's quite large, but suppose we want to fit it inside a square 200 by 200 pixels while preserving its aspect ratio. So, how can we do it? Thanks to the best fit action, it's rather easy. We simply apply it and immediately we see the results. This rectangle is exactly 200 by 200 pixels, just as we wanted. And notice how the image's aspect ratio was perfectly preserved. At what price? Well, we have now white space at the bottom and at the top. But best fit action has several modes. One mode is to include empty space, like we have here. Another mode is no empty space. But then the resulting image will not be exactly 200 by 200 pixels. Instead, it will be either equal to this size or it will be less than that, as is the case here. While the width is 200 pixels, the height is smaller. And then finally, we can crop the image, in which case the image will be exactly 200 by 200 pixels, just as we wanted. However, some part of the image will be cropped out, and we can control which part exactly will be cropped out using the position tab. We can select different areas of the image that we want to have, and we can precisely control the areas that we want to keep using the offsets settings. And if you choose to include white space, you can also control the back color quite easily, as well as a few other settings. Another new and extremely useful action is the Smart Crop that has no analogs in any other programs. What it does is it automatically removes any empty or white space surrounding the image. Take this image for example. As you can see, the armchair is not centered and the image has quite a lot of white space surrounding it. Quite a lot on the right, some on the left, some at the bottom, and just a tiny bit at the top. What would it take to get rid of this empty space surrounding the main image? Well, you could use some image editing software, but what if you have hundreds of images that have this problem? Surely you cannot spend hours of time manually cropping each image, and so that's where Smart Crop comes in very handy. A simple mouse click solves all our problems, and the ugly and unnecessary empty space surrounding the image magically disappears. So let's examine what's going on in more detail. What the Smart Crop action actually does is that it basically automatically detects and removes any white space on the sides that you define. You can selectively control where you want the empty space to be removed, and you can set the margins for each of the sides that determine the minimum white space that should be left remaining. But notice how the background of this image is basically of the same color, that is, it's gray. And so you may be wondering if Smart Crop will still work if we'll have a less homogeneous background. So let's find out. So we now have a different image with a different armchair and most importantly a much less homogeneous background. As you can see, it's not merely green, it's got some quite grainy texture to it. But if we apply Smart Crop action to this image, it still works. It magically removes unnecessary empty space surrounding the image. But to tell you the truth, it's not so magical after all, because what we have here is the so-called white space homogeneity tolerance that basically determines the amount of the color difference that the program is willing to tolerate and therefore treat as the same color. So if, for example, I decrease the tolerance slightly, you will notice how empty space actually grows and doesn't get recognized as the empty space. But if I increase the tolerance, the program recognizes empty space much better. So this is a very powerful tool if used correctly. Just think how much time it would take if you had to manually crop and get rid of empty space for hundreds of images. Well, with Batch Image Resizer's Smart Crop, it would take you only a couple of seconds. One of the last features I wanted to highlight in this demo is the fact that we have introduced built-in image search. Previously there were two ways to add images. You could add all images in a particular folder, or you could specify exactly which files you want to add. Now you can use the built-in search to search for particular images, and you have a wide variety of options here. You can use wildcards and regular expressions, you can scan subfolders, you can instruct the program to look for images with particular attributes or properties like size, and so on. So it gives you full control over which images the program should automatically add. So we encourage you to upgrade to the latest version to take advantage of these exciting new features and many others. Thank you for watching this demo.